And then the second part of it is, all the good things that Bitcoin will do in terms of helping the economy and helping people, making the world fair and operating in a fair system. And, apart from just making money on it, it'll reduce wars, it'll reduce financial inequality because we're all playing by the same mathematical rules. And so the second half of the book really tries to explain Bitcoin very clearly and simply. If you agree with part one that you've been screwed and that the system's broken, your best bet in terms of both protecting yourself and then collectively, if we all get behind it, moving the system towards a better system, is to buy and support and advocate for a Bitcoin standard.
For sure. You know something, there was a tweet that came out last week or a couple days ago. I don't know who it was in the financial world, but they basically said this, one of the most inaccurate statements is that the currency's being debased. It was intended to be debased, and everyone has always known you don't save in dollars, you have to find assets. My counter to that when I read it was, wow, that's an elite group that speaks to, right? And the bottom half that you talk about, even the pension fund doesn't have access when the deck gets reshuffled and liquidity is moved around. They're not at the closest table on who wins from that, and there's winners and losers.
That's absolutely right. I mean, I don't know who said that, but whoever did, that's an evil statement, but it's correct. I mean, the currency is going to be debased. So the problem and the reason, the playing field is unfair, and the reason the playing field is unfair is that if you're a financial operator, you're Wall Street, you're a hedge fund, you're a PE firm, you're a large investor, you're a wealthy person, you can borrow at very low rates and use that to buy things that provide a high yield, and therefore you get ahead at the expense of everyone else who can't borrow at those low rates. Because if you and I go to borrow money, other than our mortgage, which it can be a reasonable rate of interest, everything else we borrow is at 25% from the credit card companies, and they're usurious. It's a terrible deal. So, but if you're a big, powerful organization or connected to Wall Street or part of the game, you can borrow at very low rates, and so that basic monetary unfairness is what has created the wealth inequality and all the political anger that people feel. And it's another example of how it's a rigged game. In 2008, these people, they go and they lever themselves up, they pay a ton of bonuses, they croak the financial system. They basically put it right to the edge where, Hank Paulson said, if you don't give us this, the ATMs aren't going to work.
Yeah.
Well, the government has no choice. They print a ton of money, and instead of being penalized for doing all this bad behavior, they pay themselves $20 billion in bonuses that year.
Yeah, they're made whole. And then the pension funds actually, even though they got some help, the way they made up the difference is they said, hey, you're going to retire now 3 years later or 5 years later.
Right.
You're going to pay more into the system. We'll balance the ledger on your backs. But those who gambled and were reckless with the system, we're going to make you 100% whole because we depend on you to make money work.
That's exactly what happened. And it's just tragic. It's like the money people hold a gun to the head of the country and say, give us what we want or we're going to blow your brains out.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to have their brains blown out, so we give it to them. But giving it to them is why gasoline's expensive and food's expensive, and because there's really no free lunch. They just print the money, give it to those people. They don't give it to the regular person. And, regular people get really hurt. My sister lost her house in the GFC. And so, look at COVID. Look at how everyone's suffering from the inflation caused by COVID. The grocery store is a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
It's just... everybody.
We hear the numbers of 2%, 3%, but everyone knows that, hey, my credit debt seems to be growing faster, and I'm not spending more recklessly. I'm not buying a bunch of stuff. I'm just living my same life, and it's just falling behind.
That's absolutely right. And there's actually a nice little section in the book that talks about and gives examples of how the government cooks the inflation numbers. Because they're saying it's 3%, hopefully going to 2%. That's not true. That's not true at all. That's not what I'm seeing.
No.
All my stuff is getting expensive every single time I go to the supermarket, right? So,
100%. Well, the folks that tune in for us are workers and wage earners. Where can they find the big print? Because again, I learned so much about money through Bitcoin, and I came from a working class family. I know you studied finance and understand economics, but I think people have to read about this stuff and they have to learn, because it's one thing to sit there and realize where I'm at and what I have available to me. It's another thing to just be blindly going through life and just being a pawn in the system.
You've got to take agency of your own finances. I mean, turn off the football, turn off the other stuff. Take the time. I mean, the audiobook on this is 12 and a half hours. If you listen to 2x, it's 6 hours. The book is probably 10 or 12 hours of reading, and it takes a little bit of thought. But, I mean, you're talking about your financial future here, and in my opinion, we're talking about going into a very troublesome time where a lot of people are going to get badly hurt. So I can't overemphasize how important it is to try and come up to speed on this. And the place you can find it, I mean, this QR code probably it's not going to work from that distance, but well, maybe there's a way. Yeah.
Scan that.
Yeah, I don't know will that work? No, it's the QR's on the other side. Yeah. The QR code takes you to Amazon. Just go to Amazon and type in the big print, and it will show up. And it's in all formats. It's hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. So, I would really strongly encourage people to try and read it because I think it'll explain to them very clearly what's happening, and then more importantly, it'll tell them what to do and how to protect themselves. And I just want to see. I want to see. I said in the beginning of the book, right? One of the statements I made was, I'm 67 years old, and I've been in this area all my life, and I've seen how bad it is, and it's gotten worse. And that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to document the history of it. And this country was a nice country in the 70s. I mean, it wasn't perfect, the Vietnam War, et cetera, but it was a nice country in the 80s even. And it's not the same country anymore. People are angry, people are mad, people are getting burned by inflation. The middle class has been eviscerated. The lower middle class, I mean, people below the median point, they've been really, really suffered terribly. I mean, their wages just have not gone up, and the cost of everything's gone up a lot. I mean, it's kind of like, how much more of this can we take? And that's why Trump won. Thank God he did, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. But even to be, totally transparent on that, this is going to be painful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way of avoiding this pain.
That curve shows that both parties in the White House printing it's always happening.
Correct.
The monetary supply is always on the way up.
Correct.
The debt ceiling is always getting raised.
Trump gets a B plus from me. If Trump wanted to get an A from me, he would have to come out with a speech that I put in the book about what a president should say, which is we are going to abandon Keynesianism and go back to a sound money system. If we did that, it's funny. I mean, as bad as all this stuff is, and again, I hate being accused of being a doomer, but if you look at it analytically, you just have to conclude it's not good, okay? As bad as all this stuff is, there are many, many instances in history where other countries have done this, and what they do is usually the currency has a lot of inflation, maybe it even fails, but they reset to a sound currency. And I was on a podcast with a guy a day or two ago, nice guy, who was from Argentina. And he was a teenager in 1990 and 91 in Argentina, and they had a hyperinflation. And he told stories of how his mother would get paid for her work, and she would immediately race to the grocery store to buy the food because she knew one day later the food was going to cost more. Yeah. Right? That was how bad the inflation was. And he said it just got horrible, and then then the money became worthless. And he said, but then they reset to a new monetary standard. They actually went to the dollar, which is not a great standard, but it's better than their currency. Yeah. And he said, it's amazing, Larry, within 6 months or a year, everything was okay again because we had sound money. Yeah. I mean, broken money breaks everything. It's the base layer of our operating system for our economy, and it just breaks everything, and that's why people are hurting so bad. If we go back to a sound money system, things will be much better, full stop.
Like you said, 60s, 70s, savings culture was thriving. People would save and say, hey, save, put away, plan for the next generation. So
absolutely. I mean, the Keynesians believe in eating the seed corn. I mean, John Maynard Keynes said in the long run we're all dead. That's just evil. I mean, basically we should not eat the seed corn. You want to save the seed corn because that's what allows you to increase the productivity. And that's how, I mean, one of the other things I think is really sad that's going on right now, Dom, is there really used to truly be an American dream where every family could feel like the kids would be better off than their parents. You know what I mean? You could see it. I mean, and I'm not so sure that's true today. At least it's not under this system.
Well, hopefully, people will start taking agency over their finances. Larry, I know they're going to kick us out here soon, but you're a valuable voice in this space. You're a valuable resource for workers and wage earners at home. You've studied finance and economics, like you said, for your lifetime. People should read your book. They should learn about how money works. They should learn about Bitcoin, whether they like Bitcoin or not. They can't deny the lessons in Bitcoin. And then if not Bitcoin, then what else?
Right. I mean, clearly Bitcoin, gold's a distant second choice, but at least it's neutral reserve currency. I mean, let me just say, I'm not political. I'm a libertarian. I'm very neutral. I mean, liberals, conservatives, I mean, anyone can get behind sound money.
Yeah.
And some of the things the liberals are complaining about, I get it. I mean, I get, I don't believe that Bernie and AOC have the right solution to the problem, but I understand their anger.
Yeah.
I mean, the country's really broken, and I just beg everybody to try to, I wrote the book because I just feel like very few people really understand the core problem. And the money is the core problem. And once you understand it, as you know, Dom, because you're full on Bitcoin, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
100%.
You're like, oh my God, that's the problem. We got to fix that. Because I think the average American just wants to live their life, take care of their family, take care of their kids, have a better life for their kids, and
handsome value.
Yeah, and handsome value, and be able to retire with security. And sadly, that's all slipped away. It's really slipped away.
Well, we'll get back. Hey, thank you for talking with us.
Good to see you.
I appreciate you, Larry. This is Dom Bay, Proof of Workforce Live, where, again, if you're going to trade your time for money, make sure your money holds up over time. Larry Lepard, go check out the big print. Thank you so much. Live from BitBlock Boom.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Really
again, Larry.
Appreciate
Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.